Now you've spent hundreds or perhaps thousands on putting together your perfect audio solution using hi-fi separates. But now you want to hop onto the internet radio bandwagon for, well, not much cash really. Perhaps the Roberts RS1 may be the solution. In this video, I'll be reviewing this little device, and if that interests you, keep watching. Of all the internet radios I've reviewed so far, the Roberts RS1 is the only one with some sort of heritage. The history of Roberts radio goes all the way back to the 1930s and includes such design classics as the R66, the R200 and the Rambler. But the Roberts radio of the 21st century is not the same as the company of the days gone by. After a lean period in the 1980s, they've been revitalised with new R&D and they've fully embraced the digital age. And that brings me to this little strange object, the RS1. Now, to fully understand why the RS1 exists, we have to go back a few years to 2016 when it was launched to be part of the R-Line series of products. R-Line was Roberts going head to head with those newbie upstarts Sonos, who by this stage were gaining more and more traction into the multi-room music streaming market. The RS1 was designed to integrate any non-digital music hardware into the R-Line streaming environment, so your very expensive hi-fi separates, well, they could be a node that you could also stream to. However, by the time this was all released, Sonos was so far ahead in the marketplace that making any inroads into this segment was pretty much unobtainable, and the R-Line was quietly shelved. Not even their special domain name, robertsrline.com, now exists, and their website only mentions it all in passing. So where does that leave the RS1? Well, in a quite good place actually, because although it's no longer part of the R-Line streaming environment, it still works as a very good standalone internet radio. And with that as a backstory, let's go and investigate it some more. Let's start with what you get in the box. Obviously you get the RS1 itself, and yes, it's not the best looking thing in its simple white plastic clothing, but then look at the controls. There are 2 buttons. How do you actually operate the thing? Well, I'll come to all that in a bit. But in the box you'll get 2 audio cables, a 3.5mm to RCA and a 3.5 to 3.5. And finally, to power it, you get a USB cable and a mains adapter. What you don't see on screen is the pretty comprehensive instruction guide, which to be fair, you'll probably need when you come to actually operate it. Looking at the back, you'll have an idea of where all those cables go. Running from left to right, you have an Ethernet connection, so you can plug in to a switch or power line adapter. But if you want to do that, you'll have to supply your own Ethernet cable. Wireless is the default method of internet streaming in this box. Next along is a digital optical output, which uses the Toslink standard, and again, if you want to connect via this method, you'll need to provide your own cable, which is probably less than £10. Next along is the analog output, which is what the 2 audio cables in the box are for, and then we hit the auxiliary input socket, and this is kind of redundant with the R-Line system. The idea here was that you could take the output from, say, a TV and plug it into this socket and then distribute the audio around the house using the R-Line speakers. As I said though, without that, you're not going to have much purpose for this. Then we're going to skip over the USB-A socket because I need to expand on that later and go straight to the micro USB socket, which is the DC power input. As you saw, there's a mains to USB adapter and a USB cable in the box, but as always, for these demos, I'll be using a power bank. So before we start thinking about setting this up, it's probably a good time to mention something that I've been saying a lot in these reviews recently. Because although there's a Roberts logo on the case, main functionality is entirely driven by technology and software from Frontier Smart Technologies. If you don't know who they are, I've done a video which I've linked to in the top left and in the description, which explains a bit more about them and how they're involved in almost all internet radios on sale today. And in this case, it's the Frontier mobile app called Undok, which controls the whole system. So if you don't have something to run iOS or Android apps, this is probably not going to be the device for you, as the 2 buttons on the front will only allow you to put it in standby or switch between the sources. Everything else is in the app. But I need to power up the RS1 first before I take you through the operation of the app, so let's do that now. Unsurprisingly, powering it up is just a case of plugging in the USB cable, but knowing what's going on is down to the lights on the front. If you powered up the RS1 for the very first time, as in our case, all of the lights will come on briefly, then the mode light cycles through some different colours. Eventually, when everything is ready, the network light will start to flash, and now it's time to whip out the app. Download and install from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store as normal, and click on the icon and make sure you're on your local Wi-Fi network. If you already have any other radios which use the Frontier Smart Technology chipset, you can use this app to connect to them as well, which is why you can see my John Lewis Octave already in there. But today we're concentrating on setting up the RS1, so start by clicking the plus icon. Click the Set Up Smart Radio button. You should then see a list of all the Wi-Fi networks in the vicinity, but you need to look specifically for the one that's generated by the RS1 itself. You need to click this so the app can connect to the local network. Click Next. Change the name if you wish so you can identify it in the app. Change the language if you wish. Then you need to choose the name of your own Wi-Fi network and put in your Wi-Fi password. Then wait until it has completed its configuration. Once it's finished, you'll get a free advert for Spotify. Aren't you lucky? Click Next. Then you can click Start using my audio system. Finally, you see the RS1 on the home screen. Press that to get started. And then you can choose Browse to start looking through all of the radio stations. So now we've chosen the station we want to listen to, let's flip back to the RS1 and plug in a speaker to hear it. Now in this case I'm using a pure Jongo speaker which I bought about 10 years ago, but any powered speaker with a 3.5mm or RCA socket should work.
Steinhauer and Dr. Philippe Mattei. And I'll leave you with a snatch of ancient Greek music, reimagined by the contemporary composer Petros Tabouris, one of the oldest pictorial records of Greek music.
And just for the sake of completeness, here is me plugging it into a Bose Wave SoundTouch. Yes, I know this is a kind of futile exercise because the SoundTouch already has internet radio, but hey, we have to work with what we have. Now before we do anything else, let's go back and investigate the USB-A socket on the back of the device, which I skipped before. Let's face it, you thought I'd forgotten about it, didn't you? Oh, ye of little faith. It's primarily designed for playing music from a memory stick, and it'll handle up to a 128GB device, formatted either as FAT16 or FAT32, with music in either MP3, WMA, AAC, FLAC, ALAC, or WAV formats. And because I'm always asked about this, yes, it will charge your mobile phone. Just very slowly. So now we've had that little digression, let's spend the rest of the time looking at the app. So the first thing we're going to look at in the application is the source. This allows you to choose between all of the sources of music available. Press the Roberts RS1 in the home page, press the source, and you'll see the list of options. The only one that doesn't work here is local music, and I suspect that's because it's not supported by the RS1. All of the others have an associated mode LED on the front of the RS1, and the colour changes dependent on what we've chosen. As you can see, we're on internet radio on the app, and the mode is magenta. Spotify Connect is yellow. The The music player is for DLNA or plug and play wireless music streaming on the network, and that is cyan. And the auxiliary in is the socket on the back, and that is green. You can also see the options of source change in the app if you press the mode reset button on the front of the RS1. So magenta on the front corresponds with internet radio. Yellow corresponds with Spotify Connect. Cyan corresponds with the music player. And green corresponds with the auxiliary in. Now the music player is a DLNA universal plug and play file server music player, and that allows you to click on anything that's on the network. So we have two options here. We have the USB playback, which equates to what we've got on this USB flash drive. And we have shared media, which is what's on the network file server. USB playback shows us some files on here, and they're on this USB drive. Shared media chooses the file server with all the music on. We have all this music to choose from on our local network. So I want to finish the review of the RS1 by having one last overview of the application. We've already been through some of it, but I want to just take you through the last little bits just to show you what we have, or what we don't have to choose from in the app. It's a very basic application. It's a very minimalist UI. There's no real functionality, but I think that's more to do with the RS1 than the app. I think the app will give you the functionality if that was available in the device that it was connecting to. For instance, we've already been through here where you could choose the source and you could see what's playing, and you can choose your podcast or radio that is in here, for instance. But there's also one other option. You can click on the three little dots in the top right hand corner and you can go into the settings for the app itself, or you can go in for the device settings. But there isn't really much here at all. You can rename the device. You have some details about your network traffic and your version of the software, your IP address, etc. You can reset the language if you want to change it from what you already set it up when it was going through the process of configuration. You have a sleep timer, which goes from 15 minutes to 120 minutes. You have no equalizer whatsoever, so you get a blank page. And you have a factory reset. There's nothing else on this page at all. If you go back, the only other option that you have is if you go to the now playing settings, you can use the hamburger menu in the top left-hand corner to choose presets. You can store up to 40 presets on here for one station. So for instance, if I was to go into here, go to a classical music station, for instance, in some country, I don't know where I am. Let's go to popular stations. We go to Classic FM. If I wanted to store that as a station preset, you just click the plus sign and then you've got it stored. And then you can flip between the different stations that you have in your presets by just choosing them like that. Again, very simple. There's not really much to go wrong, and there's not really much to get confused about. So that's really all there is in the RS1. So that was the review. What did you think? Does the funny little Roberts RS1 have a place in your audio life? If it does, why not put something in the comments? But if you're going to buy one, here's a little tip. You'll see RS1s on sale all over the place for a myriad of prices from £30 all the way up to £90. But don't spend that much. Do what I did. Go onto eBay and buy a certified refurbished RS1 for £18. Yes, the box is a bit bashed, but the important thing is you get the full set of cables and documentation, and the device itself is 100% brand new. Anyway, If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and click the dingy bell so you'll know when I upload any new content. Thanks for watching.